Welcome to An Aries and Pisces Walk Into a Coffee Shop, the podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Bridget, she, her.
And I'm Tiffany, she, her. This is a podcast where two friends let go of perfectionism and talk unedited.
Hello.
Hey, how's that Mercury retrograde treating you?
Going really great. I mentioned Mercury retrograde to somebody the other day, and I think they said something along the lines of that it just feels like a perpetual Mercury retrograde, like most of the time.
Yeah, because, well, you have the shadow phases before and after, and then you have the actual retrograde, and it happens consistently and often. But some are worse than others for like the quirky stuff, like tech or just like miscommunication or like talking past each other things. But also,
Yes.
I was thinking about the other day that I think it also depends on what Mercury is doing in your personal chart. I suspect there are people out there that maybe just don't have a lot of mercurial influence, so they're not affected or paying attention or noticing it as much as people like us who have more Mercury influence because we're both Virgo moon.
Yeah, I just learned that today.
Oh, really?
Not that
not the Virgo moon part, but that Mercury has something to do with Virgo.
Yes, and it was because of that podcast with Jordan that you sent. And
right.
Yeah, when she was describing the Virgo moon being ruled by Mercury. And I was like, wow, I just learned something new. I wonder if that is like, part of the reason why like Mercury retrograde could maybe like affect me in different ways. I don't know what all of those nuances are, but it got me thinking.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing, I think, about astrology in general is that it gets you thinking and just, well, it's a perspective shift. It's just a different lens to look at a thing through. And that makes me feel less personally attacked.
Yes. Yes. And we can all use a little bit of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today we're in the beginning of September. Okay, I was thinking about this morning. How do you, in your brain, classify if you were going to say it's the beginning of the month, the middle of the month, and the end of the month?
Like, where's my cutoff point for it to stop being the beginning of the month?
Yeah.
Interesting. I think that Ingrid has some opinions because she just rip-roared down the hallway.
I could hear her.
That was a very loud pitter-patter. I think that my brain says once you start hitting the second week of a month that it's mid-month.
The second week. Okay, so
like, but like not like the 8th, but like somewhere between like 10 and 14.
Okay.
Starts getting into mid-month for me.
Okay. Yeah. All right. My brain is very much like I love hearing you describe things. Like the way that your brain works to me is just so fascinating because you're like the second week of the month. And I'm like, oh God, I've never thought about like the second week of the month. I'm like, what date is that? Like, I'm like, how do I know? Like, I need to like see the calendar. Where's the second week?
That is so funny that you said that because you know what I just did? I literally, so I said that to you and then I was like, I need to look at it. And I literally just pulled up a calendar to look and been like, yeah, that was right. Because like after, we're within like, if you're like week 2 into a month, that's when I'm like, oh yeah, we're in the mid. But I had to look at it to double check if I was saying it correctly. And I think I am.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere between 10 and 14, I start thinking, yeah, mid-month. But it goes by so fast because for me, it's like beginning and then the middle is like gone and now we're at the end.
Okay, I think that's how I feel. I feel like I'm very much like, okay, 15 is in the middle, right? Because we're like, the month either
Mm-hmm.
has like 30 or 31 days, and half of that is like 15.
Mm-hmm.
So I think to me, like, I don't think about it until like, oh, 15, that's like the middle. And then my brain goes, oh my God, we're done with the month. Like the month is
Right.
like ending soon. Like,
Oh, you know what?
it's
Just
fucking like impending doom.
well, time is confusing and slippery.
Yes.
And the image that just popped in my head was like the affinity symbol. I think that's what is happening in my brain, where it's like, oh, we're at the beginning of the month, it's the middle, oh God, it's already done. And now we're at the end. And then we start over because then we're at the beginning of the month, but then it like keeps happening. So there's like this cross section where it's like, that's the middle, but then it's like, so
Slippery. Yeah.
yeah, it slips by. And then it's just like, oh no, it's almost the next month already. Like how I need to
Right.
prep.
Oh my
I'm
God.
never prepped.
Why do we do this to ourselves? One of my new favorite sayings is from Heartstopper. Thank you very much. But when Charlie is always asking, like, why are we like this? And
Yeah.
it's the sweetest like way that
Mm-hmm.
he like asks it, like, why are we like this? And now I would like to propose that question to you, Tiffany. Why are we like this? I know some of the answers, right? It's the usual.
I'm gonna go on my rant.
Yeah.
Society
Yeah.
just imposes nonsense. Time isn't linear. Like capitalism isn't okay. Da 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 da. I think that's where I always have to be prepared for something comes from, like just like that societal expectation that you always should be preparing and striving and doing. And I had that thought reinforced by memes mostly. Memes talking about like, why does capitalism rush our seasons? Like it
Yes.
is still
Oh,
the
this,
heat of
yes.
summer, but we're talking about Thanksgiving and like we're not there yet. And so I think that it gets reinforced. Plus, being alive is anxiety inducing. Like there's a discomfort there. And I think that a lot of our brains think that if we just future cast and prepare, that then we can prepare for all things and feel safe. And that's the opposite of what happens. You end up
Right.
feeling hyper vigilant.
Right. It doesn't, listen, it doesn't work. It doesn't help. Oh, yeah, I'm feeling that in a really big way this year. So I guess by our monthly standards, we're still in the beginning of September.
Yeah.
Right now. But yeah, and for a while now, like Halloween stuff has already been out, like all the like fall decorations and everything. And I have been feeling in a really big way, like, wait a second, like fall doesn't come until the like end of this month, like the
Mm-hmm.
actual, like autumn equinox. Is that what
Mm-hmm.
it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Are those the right words? Um, and so, yeah, like I want to celebrate the end of this season instead
Mm-hmm.
of what typically happens, which is that impending doom of, oh my God, it's almost fall. Like summer's done. It's almost fall, which means it's basically winter and it's going to be dark and cold
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to be miserable and depressed. Well, this year was very new in that I was like, I want to celebrate the end of summer
Mm.
instead of all of that. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, like that feels different. And, but I'm being faced with everything else in, like society. And I'm like, okay, well, how can I stand here and celebrate where we are, where I am, like right here in this moment, while most of the things around me are pushing forward. And that's what happens all
Yes.
year round. If you think about it, it's always like
Yes.
we're always being like pushed and forced into the next thing. And I think this is what I'm almost all the way through with that We Can Do Hard Things episode with Adrienne Marie Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And like, oh my God, Tiffany, this episode is so good.
It's a great conversation. But
Oh,
that's
it's
anytime
so good.
Adrian's anywhere talking to anyone, that ends up being how I feel, because I could listen to her say anything forever.
I
Her
haven't
voice is
listened
so
to her enough.
soothing.
I'm realizing.
Listen to her
Uh,
audiobooks. They're also delightful. She just talks to you. She's not reading to you. She's just
yes.
talking deep into
Oh,
you. It's so
oh, I'm getting that feeling from this.
good.
But like that's what they're talking about is that like, satisfaction, which is fantastic for me because that's my big like word that I've been like working with this year,
Yeah.
that like theme of satisfaction and cultivating that in my life and where I feel that and just like listening to their conversation. And she's like, listen, the society that we have grown up in here does not allow for the concept of satisfaction. Everything is literally designed for us to just want more or think that we need more or something else or bigger or better. And like the idea of satisfaction is not okay. It's not enough. Like it's not. Oh, this is just it's blowing me wide open. I feel like we have had so many conversations this year about me feeling like, oh my God, I'm like in the middle of the ocean and I'm just floating around and I don't know where I'm going. And this and like other conversations I've had with you and about like the Heartstopper show, which we could talk about too, is all making me start to feel like I am grasping onto things.
Oh, what a relief.
Oh my God, I know.
Oh, I felt that in my chest when you said that. But I think it's because I'm also having that same sensation. I've been calling it clarity or lucidity, which is new thing for me. But I think that is a similar process that I've been undergoing, where things that I kind of cerebrally have been exploring and a little befuddled by are starting to like, I don't know, like percolate down into like an embodiment where I'm like, oh, that's what that is supposed to feel like.
Yeah.
And the cerebral concept wasn't enough, obviously, because incarnated
Why?
into the flesh suit.
Why
So
can't we just keep thinking about it?
forever and ever. I mean, I'm gonna keep doing that. I can't stop. You can't stop me, says my Mercury and Virgo moon.
This is why we're like this.
Yeah, it's oh, so I definitely feel that as well. And one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is something that one of my witch friends posted, where it was like one of those screenshots of like an online post somewhere, someone saying that the way that they kind of mark the passage of time is by getting back to nature and paying attention to the things in their like immediate environment that tells them, oh, this is this time of year now when this thing blooms or when that thing stops blooming. And it ended with a what are yours? And it was a really lovely thread of people commenting on my friend's post. Like, she captioned it when she shared it, like with her own, like, oh, I know that this season is approaching or ending when, and like listed a couple of things. And it was just really sweet and tender to like get back to something that would have been so intuitive and natural if we were living outside and having to like work with the land like our ancestors did. And to see the ways that us as people that live in houses in cities or towns and maybe are growing our own food or a little bit just like more removed from that, how we're finding our way back.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was thinking about was even just like in apartments that I've lived in, I would notice like how the sun would change coming through the window.
Yeah.
Like through time. And I wasn't always cognitively aware of that. And it felt really grounding to be like, oh, at this time of year, the sun doesn't hit this living room the same way. and the excitement of finding that out in my new apartment.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, this is a nice way to think about time, because I'm normally very stressed out about time
Yeah.
because slippery.
Yeah, that is. I'm enjoying like thinking about these concepts. The sunshine is one that I have noticed over the past couple or few years, but I think especially since I have been cultivating our little backyard space, I
Mm-hmm.
call it a garden. Um, for but sometimes I like give myself a hard time in my head about calling it a garden because I'm like, I'm not growing food. And to me, like a garden has to be food, but then I just considered that I am growing a garden of food for like the birds
Mm-hmm.
and like the insects. And anyway, it's my garden and my deck space, and I know where the sun is going to come from
Mm-hmm.
during like which parts of the year or like the summer specifically.
Yeah.
Um, and so that is neat to think about that as more of like a connection with the seasons. And in because it does get hard for me because in the winter like the sunshine does not come in the house
Yeah.
in the same way, and especially for like Chloe, who just like her happy spot in life is laying in the sun on the
Mm-hmm.
floor, and that doesn't happen in the winter, and I think I get like sad for her as well.
Interesting. Do you have heated spots for the cats to lay in through the winter?
Not heated. We bought them those like self-heating blankets that are
Oh.
supposed to just
Mm-hmm.
be warm when they lay on them. I'm not sure exactly how warm they are because I think I've told you this before, but we were planning on putting them away for the summer. However,
Right.
both cats have continued to lay on them all summer long like it's the best thing ever, which is making me really consider like, oh my God, maybe they're not warm enough in the winter. Like we need even warmer. Um, so I don't know. So I don't know.
Oh, it's funny. I was just curious because I know cats just generally are attracted to warmth. Um, and even with Ingrid, like I don't have air conditioning in this apartment, and there's been some days where it has been rough. And even on those days, I was like so anxious about how she was doing
Mm-hmm.
with the heat because I was struggling. But there were parts of the house that were significantly cooler just
Mm-hmm.
based on where the sun was and how the house, building, how the building is. And she would not lay in the coolest parts of the house, even though they are like the bedroom, for example, is pretty good during the later part of the day because the sun has come to the other side of the apartment. And so the bedroom felt significantly cooler in the afternoon, but she would not lay in there. And so then I considered maybe she is more comfortable than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if she is all sprawled out on the hardwood floor and kind of like melted into a puddle, she did look comfortable, even though I was anxious she was too hot. But if she was really that uncomfortable, there was 2 to 3 other places she could comfortably lay in this house that were cooler, and she chose the hottest corner of the house instead.
Yeah. She was living it. She was like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give me that 100-degree heat. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah, Zero will come up and he'll sleep up here in the afternoons, it's the hottest up here. I took our indoor like thermometer thing.
Mm-hmm.
I brought it upstairs into the bedroom for a 24-hour period because I was very curious as to the temperature because our like thermostat's on the first floor and it's
Right.
always so fucking hot upstairs, like comparatively. And I found that it is like a 4-degree difference.
Oh,
So
wow.
where if I keep the house at 77 on the
Mm-hmm.
first floor, so that's then like 4 degrees hotter upstairs.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, that's where he chooses to lay, and he stuffs himself in his little box. So he's
Wow.
just completely stuffed in, like, and he's like,
Baking.
yeah, this is, yeah, great. It's great. And Chloe is on her, like, in her bed on the top of the shelf, which is essentially almost to the ceiling,
Yeah.
downstairs with her heated blanket, or, you know, warming blanket. And that's
Yeah. Cozy.
cozy. It's cozy.
Maybe you need to get yourself a warming blanket. Do they have them for humans?
I don't know, maybe. I don't
Do you
think that
think
I
that
would
would feel
want it
supportive?
right now, no.
Well,
But
I
like
meant for
in the
winter
winter.
time.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what I do before bed every night in the winter, like when it's cold, is I have my toasty beans, which
Oh, that's
is
right. I forgot about the toasty beans. Mm-hmm.
which is just rice in an old towel,
Mm-hmm.
um that you can heat up. So I put that in the microwave, and for nobody knows what reason, my partner and I call it toasty beans. Um, but yeah, I warm that up before bed and put it in bed so
Yeah,
that
that's very
it like
smart.
warms the bed up, and then I can like cuddle with it, or like
Mm-hmm.
put it wherever on my body feels the coldest.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, humans for
so it's
generations
nice.
have been doing things to warm up the bed before they crawl in.
I think that I have been learning that through like books and things, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering why that wasn't more of like a staple or like a known fact or something that people like talk about with me, because I feel like I didn't start doing it until only like a handful of years ago.
There
Like,
are so many things that humans did, and I think it just was one of those, that's so mundane. Why would we ever write it down?
hmm.
And then it just kind of gets lost a little bit until you get historians or artists, writers, both, doing research and being like, I wonder how people
Mm-hmm.
of this area dealt with these things and like started looking into it. But I think about that a lot because of the ways in which humans change their sleeping patterns over time. I mean, like, I'm thinking like ancient, but also just like before the light bulb. So, like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
people lived in cities and towns or farms, but their rhythms of sleep were very different than ours because they didn't have the artificial light. You only had so many candles,
Mm-hmm.
and they're laborious to make. So, I think about just ways in which maybe we were smarter or just more
In
intuitive.
tune, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think of,
Sometimes I I was gonna say, sometimes I wonder about, um, should I get up with the sun? Like that feels like, you know, right? Like the sun's up, like it's time to get up. Uh, It always comes back to no.
yeah, I was just about to address something similar, but from the opposite perspective, because
Uh-huh.
I am a night owl.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I also have felt like, oh, to be in the natural rhythms of things. I just had this conversation with someone too. That capitalism says you should wake up and be productive first thing in the morning, but it makes sense that we all have slightly different circadian rhythms, because if you were outside in the elements in your village, it makes sense to have people that could stay up later for tasks that make more sense at night.
Mm.
And it makes sense to have people that get up first thing to kind of like start the daytime stuff. And so us night people can wrap up the nighttime stuff and everyone gets enough rest. I think it just makes good sense.
Yeah, what about the people that are like the afternoon people? I'm the afternoon crew.
Oh, so yeah, I'm not very good in the afternoon, but maybe I would be if I got to sleep the way I wanted.
Yeah. Well,
Because
I
I,
would say, I guess it depends on what you're calling the afternoon, and I might actually shift calling myself the afternoon crew to calling myself the like 10 a.m. to like 2 or 3 p.m. crew.
okay, yeah, that is not my prime time. That's my slow time. Like I want to roll around in that time. Like, I want to just bumble from thing to thing. I really start getting productive, after 2, if I was allowed to sleep in. So, like, right now, I have to get up at a certain time for work. And so I tend to crash around 2, 3, where I'm just like, I cannot with this day anymore. But if I,
Yes.
like, got to sleep in and to, like, my normal rhythm and got to have, like, my slow startup, I think I would really ramp up between 3 and 4 and, like, start being productive. And then, like, my best ideas are later at night. Like, and unfortunately, it doesn't matter how much sleep I get, when I woke up, or what I did that day. There's something in my body that, like, 8 or 9 starts rolling around and I can feel it, where it's just like party time. And I'm like, no, we have to start winding down because we have to get to bed because we have to get up early. And my body's like, party time? And so there's always this, like, friction, push-pull dynamic where I know I need to be slowing down and, like, getting into the, I need to go to bed. But, my brain is just popping off. And then I can start feeling my body getting restless because it's just like, let's go on a walk. Let's write that thing. Maybe we should dance. Hey, remember that thing you wanted to clean, but you didn't clean? Maybe we should clean that. And I'm just like, but we have to go to bed.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Party time. I am wondering when my party time would hit. I wonder if it's like around like 1 p.m., which is when I try to schedule all of my calls or like
Mm-hmm.
appointments is at 1 p.m. because I think that that's when I feel like the most like ready to go or like ready to like do a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Yeah. Society, because of capitalism, isn't really set up for different party times. They want you to be, which is unsustainable party time for 8 hours a day. Like, get out of here. No human is raring to go and healthy for 8 hours a day. That's
no
insane.
way. No way. No.
Regardless of the time.
Yeah, no, that's no. Nope,
Yeah, it's
nope, nope.
arbitrary and nonsense.
Yeah. Party time. Oh.
What are you thinking about that?
Well, I was just thinking about how you were saying like how you would like bumble around. And
Mm-hmm.
my bumbling around time is like um that's like from like 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. That's
Ugh,
like me
to be
bumbling
up at
around.
7. See, that's the problem. I shouldn't be awake at 7. 7 isn't bumbling for me. 7 is like like I am a grumpy glacier, just like grinding against the floor and making sounds of protest. Like, I don't want to
Okay.
be that early.
Okay, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
All right. 7 to 8 is that time for me. I
The
still
glacier
like
time.
yes. My
Mm-hmm.
body is still like we're up, Bridget. We're not going back to sleep. If you go back to sleep, you're just gonna like toss it. It's gonna be miserable. Like just like it's time you're awake.
Mm-hmm.
So then like getting out of bed is like somewhere around like 7:15, 7:20, 7:30 at the latest. And then until like 8 o'clock is like I am dragging myself through like what I need to get through to get to like my morning practice.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know we've talked about before. But yeah, then that at that time I'm like, okay, I'm like that's when I'm like bumbling, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, we got a slow glacier and then we're bumbling. And then yeah, like 10 to noon, I'm like, cool, I can get some shit done. And then I can take an entire hour to have lunch. And then at 1 o'clock, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm ready to go. And then at 2, I'm like, okay, yeah, I need another break. I can't like do anything for longer than an hour. And an hour sometimes is like, that's like too much. It just depends on what it is.
Yeah, I agree with that. It depends on what it is. I think that I do need frequent breaks, but I think that's because um Well, I don't know. Maybe this is different for you, but for me, a lot of my day is structured around things other people have told me I have to do. So for me, I think I need a lot of frequent breaks because I'm doing that thing where I'm pushing through white knuckling. Like, I know I need to get this done. And there is this like external judgment draped on me of, and it should be done in this way, in this time frame. And if it's hard, what's wrong with you? Like, this should just be fine, but it's not fine. And so I'm weighed down, judging myself, anxious about how other people that can't even see me are judging me. And so that burns a lot of resources into what I should just be actually doing.
Yeah.
And I've been working really hard for the last handful of years to dismantle some of that and figure out ways in which I can do what I need to do in the way I need to do it, and that be okay.
Yes.
Even if someone else looking at it would be like, what are you doing? That's not okay. I know that I can find a thing that works for me. Well, it's the self-trust and self-advocacy, because there are parts of me that are like, well, we just talked about it. Being productive for 8 hours a day is not good for any human. I don't care who you are. And I know that, but conditioning.
It is deep, like deeply rooted in there. Yeah, because that is, I mean, I have been working with exactly the same thing over the past handful of years as I've been conscious of it. And that's hard. And I still, like, even at this point, like, I am only working for myself and I still do it to myself. So it's, and I've come a long way. I've come a long way with it. And I even know, right? Like, okay, Bridget, I'm pretty much know where my ideal like schedule is, where my energy lies for what types of different things. And yet I'll still try to push myself through it because I want to finish something, or I feel like I should or need to, or right, like it needs to look a certain way. And I'm like, I know that probably at like 2 or 3 p.m., like if I could do some kind of like fitness, like physical movement, like that is really what I need at that time. However, the thing in my brain is like, no, like you need to be doing work at this time. You can't take a break in the middle of your day to do physical fitness. Like it's work time. And if I take that break to do this physical movement, the thing in my brain is saying like, oh, well, you know, like you're going to be behind. You lost all of that work time. However, in reality, it's like if I don't take a break and do what I need, which is physical movement, and just try to push through, then I feel absolutely terrible and depleted and all of those things. Like afterwards, it's not even like satisfying to like complete that task because it feels terrible. And yet, if I allow myself to just take that break and do that movement, I can come back with like extra energy and motivation and creativity and all of the things to then complete that task. But like it is still hard to like break myself away from that, and even more so the like that thing of like, well, I need to be working 8 or 9 hours a day, and if I'm not, then I'm not very serious about this, or like this is why I'm not successful, or all of those fucking stupid stories. And so even if I do realize that what I need in my life is more physical activity and movement and break within my day, and maybe I do need less work in my day, and that's just how it is, like that's taken me a lot to accept that as well, that like I need to do less of things and have that be okay and like accept that.
Yes.
It's hard.
It really is, because not only is it conditioning, but it's actively reinforced by the society we live in. Like there are very few examples that are held up to celebrate that, because I'm even, as you were talking, I was thinking about one of the ways in which what really helped me shift my mindset was listening to like different writers talk about their process, and how many writers I know work for a fraction of the time that you would think. And they're not beating themselves up for not being productive, because they're like, my actual physical writing time is this many hours. It's short. However, I'm also reading and contemplating and thinking, and that is just as important to the work, but it doesn't look like work because I'm living so that I can write. And that was like a big shift for me. And I thought about it for other artists, but the examples of celebrating artists and their process, no one's really being like, wow, that writer only writes for 4 hours a day. Isn't that incredible? Look at like the life that they were able to create. It's the, hey, look at that actor who's pulling like 15, 16-hour days and getting, like flattened physically through the labor of their art. Isn't that incredible? And I'm like, yeah, not really sustainable though, is it?
Yeah, sounds awful. Sounds absolutely awful. Absolutely awful. Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, what you were saying about that, like by living your life, you're helping to, like inform your creativity or whatever you're making. That makes so much sense. That's like, yeah, when I try to take a walk in the middle of the afternoon because I need it. I need to, and what I do on those walks is like I process through things.
Right.
And I work problems out. Like, and if I feel stuck in something like on like a work project or whatever, like I'll take it on a walk and I will like walk with that question in my mind, right? And I'll like move it out of my body. And yeah, oh, that's so we're doing a good job.
Yes, we are in fact doing a good job, even if it doesn't always feel like it, and societal expectations might not support it all the time. But I do think that we're doing a really good job. I mean, most of the creative advice that I have heard or received is about getting bored.
Yes,
And
yes.
it sounds counterintuitive, but when you think about it, of course, if everything's so busy and loud, how are you supposed to make connections or be embodied? And it makes me think of something that I've never quite achieved, which is Julia Cameron's Artist Way week. I forget which week it is, where she talks about the media fast of not consuming anything.
That was like the best week of
happens.
my life.
Yeah, you keep on telling me that, and I still never quite achieved it because I always would slip. I don't know.
I mean, here's the thing. It was the best week of my life the first time that I did it. And then I was like, this is amazing. I want to do it again. And I haven't ever quite been able to revisit it in the way that I did that first time.
Interesting.
It's hard to let go of the things that we are like addicted to, I would say.
Yeah, there is that.
I'm thinking about Instagram in particular.
Yeah, because we have a lot of conversations about your Instagram journey.
Yeah.
But you just said it earlier and today that things were designed to keep us going back to them. I mean, Adrian was talking about it on the podcast too. Like, it's no secret. Social media was designed for our human brains to keep going back over and over again, even when we actively know this doesn't make me feel good. I don't need to be here right now. Moderation's hard.
It is. It is hard. And we're doing a great job.
We are. We take our things on walks. That's a good step.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, I guess maybe I'll go on a walk.
I always notice when my mental health needs a little extra support, when I go and have the thought, I should go on a walk. And then I have this deep panic feeling in my chest, like less than a block away from my house, where I'm like, I didn't bring my earbuds. What if I need to listen to something? And I'm like, oh, you're in trouble, huh? Do you have a tell?
No, I think mine ends up too much of like an isolation of like not going for the walk, or like not being able to like get myself out there, because I have the thing in my head that says you're tired, or you're whatever, or you're in pain, or you're these
Right.
things. Stay home, don't move, don't do anything. Like just like disappear, make it all go away. Like don't do anything. And this just happened last night.
I
And
have that too.
yeah, my part, like I think I had asked to go for a walk after dinner with my partner, and then he was asking like, do you still want to go for a walk? And I was like, no, I don't want to do anything. And I was like, that means I need to go for a walk. So yes, like get off the couch, I'm putting my shoes on, let's go. And then when I'm walking, I get to decide, is a walk what I really need right now?
Interesting.
But like I don't know that until I'm actually like on the walk. So I think maybe my tell is when I'm telling myself, no, don't do anything. Like
yeah, the freeze response, right? Like
yeah,
you'll be safe if you don't move, and that's very rarely the
not what I
actual
need.
answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think especially for you and I think we've had a lot of conversations about like chronic pain where it's just like, yeah, you get worn down. And so the shutdown thoughts start happening, but that does make you feel worse. And it sounds, it's making me think of paradox. I've been thinking a lot about paradox, which it's like my brain said I shouldn't move anywhere. Okay, opposite action. I need to go and move to find out if that's true or not. And I don't know about you, but most of the time when my brain tells me I absolutely should not XYZ, it's usually not, it's trying to protect me in the opposite way than what I actually need.
That's tough.
It is.
That's tough. I hate it. I personally very much hate it. And I hate that it's like, why do I have to deal with this like most days? Of like, I know that walking is like the thing that I need to do. So why is it still like a fight? Why am I still like at war like every day? At least I'm to the point now where like most of the time I can then like talk myself into it, but like it's still hard.
Yes, it still takes energy to get past that. But you are in fact doing it.
Right.
Which is a step in the right direction, but it is exhausting. Which is
cause for celebration. Right? Yeah. Struggle does not equal failure.
Yes, exactly. And it's difficult when you have like the nervous system dysregulation piece to constantly contend with, because all the advice is listen to your body, like get in touch with your gut, follow your intuition. And I'm like, but my nervous system's too loud and it doesn't.
Yeah, that makes it really challenging.
Because when I'm listening to my body, it says, be real quiet and don't move. Or it says, run away into the forest, never to be seen again. Like, it's not always the most healthy when I'm listening to my body, because my body has gone through some stuff and it is reactive. And so becoming embodied and sifting through those like nervous system dysregulation layers to get to the other deeper messages. What a time. It's exhausting.
We should put a pin in that.
Okay.
That's a good conversation.
Embodiment.
That's always a struggle to figure out, like what I'm listening to and tuning into and what messages to follow and which ones not to. And
it makes self-trust so hard. Everyone's like, trust yourself. And I'm like, Myself isn't always very trustworthy, though, because of learned behavior and nervous system patterns.
Yeah. What if it's like trusting, like trust yourself to me sounds like a very like big overarching entire body thing to think about, but maybe it's not that. Maybe it's like to trust like one certain part of yourself, not that whole entire thing. This is making sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
That it's like I'm not going to trust that part of myself that is like stay home, don't move, don't do anything. I'm going to trust that part that is like, you have collected all of this data, remember? And so maybe trust isn't like an overall like full body thing. Maybe it's like pieces of trust.
It makes me think of the discernment practice that I've talked about. I normally use that phrasing for something more external, but I think that it came from like an internal thing of this, where it's just like I have a lot of very loud messages in brain and body. And I know not all of them are me or were put there by me or are serving me. And so I do think about it that way a lot, where I think about it in parts. And like internal family systems modality is what I ended up finding to give me more of a framework for it, but I was just calling it like I was calling it tea party, where I was just
Yes,
like,
you told me about that.
yeah, where just like I had like, and I think I started using that for like my emotions, but then I realized my emotions had like whole personalities attached. But then I think it was my therapist that told me about IFS, because I told her about the tea party. Oh, because I was using walks. Oh, my whole life is flashing back to me now. So I can't remember where I found this phrase, but it was solvitur ambulando, where it was like a Latin phrase of like, it's solved by walking. And so I started going on conscious walks to walk with my problems or whatever I was like dealing with, whatever emotion. And then through that, I started thinking about it like a tea party, because it felt like these really big emotions were like crashing in, uninvited, unexpected. And even if I knew where they were coming from, they were just making a mess of this like nice tea set I had set up. And so then I was just thinking about the Buddhist concept of like inviting a demon to tea. There's a story about, I don't know if it's a Buddha or one of the Buddha figures. My memory is a little cloudy these days. But there's a story about an event going on and this demon Mara showing up, and the other attendees are like, "Oh, like how should we keep Mara out? Like that demon's just going to mess up this whole event." And the Buddha's like, "No, let's invite Mara to tea and like hear what they have to say." And it's like this whole idea of like not listening to someone that's causing a ruckus is only going to make the ruckus louder, the escalation more. And I started thinking about all of those concepts together, and I was like, okay, maybe I guess I should just have the tea party with the things and let them have their space, because obviously denying that they exist, telling them to shut up, it just like was not working. And so discernment. Okay, who's talking and why? And why should they not be the one in charge of this decision? And the reason is, otherwise we'd probably be laying in a forest somewhere, never to be seen again, because the be quiet and don't move message tends to be a real loud one.
Yeah. Okay. I got when you're like, why shouldn't we be like listening to them right now? Why shouldn't they? Yeah, like why they shouldn't be pouring the tea. Like you're pouring the tea. They can have some, but like they're not holding on to that teapot. They don't get that.
Yeah. Their discernment isn't so great.
Yeah.
Because they're just one sliver, they're just one part. They have they're holding a concentrated experience that isn't the overall experience. So they have things to say and good messages sometimes, but they don't need to be completely in charge. Otherwise, I don't know. I just feel like we're all going to end up poisoned.
Yeah, we don't want that.
No, I have stuff
No,
to
we
do,
don't.
people to talk to,
Yes, indeed.
experiences to have.